Horizon Zero Dawn, brought to you by Killzone developer Guerrilla Games. After this mysterious new project was shown at E3 2015, it generated a lot of interest. Horizon Zero Dawn was a completely new and ambitious project for Guerrilla Games, straying completely away from their first-person shooter roots to make an open-world action RPG. 2 years later, and Horizon Zero Dawn hits the shelves early 2017. Is this a big hit for Sony, or is this just an idea that shouldn't have seen the light of day?
Hear our prayer. What is the child but a mother's hope that takes flight? A glowing flame that climbs the air, set free to the wind.
The first thing I've got to say is, wow, look at these visuals. The visuals are fantastic, absolutely gorgeous. The best looking PS4 game in my opinion. The open world has many different vistas to marvel at. Desert, forest, mountains, it's got a vibrant colour palette. The only thing I find a bit strange is that there's no transition between weather patterns. It will suddenly go from raining to sunny in a second. The day and night cycles are great, and the game looks so different depending on the time of day. The lighting here is amazing. The open world is decent and a good size, plenty of countryside but not many built up areas other than the main city Meridian. Regardless, the open world is impressive and the fantastic visuals add extra charm to the world. Okay, so it's a great looking game, but what about the rest of the game? What's this game about? Horizon Zero Dawn is a post-apocalyptic action RPG where nature has reclaimed the Earth and humanity has gone back to the tribal times. However, there's a twist. Machines rule the Earth and many mysteries lie on what happened to humanity. Why are machines in similar forms to animals? What happened to civilization? Many of these questions are revealed as protagonist Aloy fights to get answers. At first I wasn't a fan of the whole concept. The idea of there being an apocalypse where animals are robots just didn't appeal to me. I initially wasn't that interested in getting the game, but I wanted to approach it with an open mind. And I am a sucker for an open world game, and I haven't seen many PlayStation exclusive Western open world RPGs, and that side of it looked interesting. The game world is what pulled me in. With that being said, I was quite skeptical of the story and concept, and I wasn't sure that when or if all is explained that I would find it believable. I was wrong. Later down the line, things started to get explained on why the world is the way it is, and it's actually a clever and intriguing concept. The narrative starts to unfold and you realise that this is a story that can be taken seriously and has real profoundness to it. The story starts off well. Great characters and interesting plot lines. Things start to unfold and tragedy strikes. The first 3 hours was extremely intriguing. Later on, the story reaches a rather dull point. Many characters and quests you must do are pretty forgettable. I initially fell off the game at this point and moved on to other games. I came back to this game later on and progressed further through the story. Many questions that Aloy and yourself had at the start eventually start to unfold, and that's when the story really starts to heat up. Once you get past that initial dull and flat point of the story when you first reach Meridian, the story starts to connect, and there's a real interesting use of science and technology mixed with humans' perception of it and how it intertwines with religion. Something that's so interesting about Horizon Zero Dawn's universe is how humanity's gone back to the tribal times, but because it's actually in the future, there's futuristic things all around buried beneath the earth. Humanity's perception on these things is quite believable. Many believe these things that were built by civilization before it fell under to be ancient religious gods and relics. Aloy is such a great protagonist. She's witty, clever, and noble, and has personality.
You'll be the one surprised tomorrow, outcast. Not me.
Oh, are you gonna shut your mouth? Because that would be a surprise.
Aloy is quite possibly the most iconic female protagonist since Lara Croft. The main plotline is fantastic overall, but unfortunately, most of the side quests and errands kinda just feel like filler, which most open world games suffer from. None of the quest narratives are really that memorable or interesting. Likewise, neither are most of the characters you meet in them. Most character deaths are also pretty cheesy. At times they're anticlimactic and pack no emotion behind them. Quests and tasks are organised really well. Each has their own section, with there being main quests, side quests, and then there's more things outside of that. It also shows the recommended level for each of these tasks and quests, which I like. Errands are simple fetch quests or investigations that don't really have much plotline to them, whereas side quests are quests with actual narratives that are usually longer but not typically tied at all to the main story. I like that they are divided because you know that an errand will typically be shorter and a simpler task. Other things to do include tallnecks, trials and bandit camps. Tallnecks are like giant mechanical giraffes that walk around. The aim is to find a way to jump on it around a pool of enemies and climb to the top. Once you reach the top, it reveals more of the map. Trials are challenges where you'll have to beat certain times doing objectives in order to get a bronze, silver or gold. Then there's other things like cauldrons, which are dungeon equivalents that you can beat. I found most of the cauldrons quite tedious to get through. Although they're fairly creative, I wasn't a huge fan of them. After a while, these side activities, including the side quests, do start to get quite repetitive and boring. A game mechanic borrowed from The Witcher 3 is the ability to track footsteps and find clues. It's a good mechanic that worked in The Witcher 3 and it works in Horizon. The problem I have is that I feel like they overuse this mechanic a little too much. It becomes quite evident once you play the errands and side quests. Sometimes these errands and side quests are surprisingly creative and interesting, but too often will there be boring ones to do, and some of it just feels like filler. None of these quests feel lazy or tacked on though. You can tell effort was put into even minor quests by the devs. It's just that unfortunately it's not always that interesting in my opinion. Most quests outside of the main ones end up becoming very repetitive. Search for clues, track footsteps, fight a big machine, trigger a bit of story. It's a repetitive pattern of gameplay for most of the side quests. This ultimately makes the game feel tedious at times outside of the main game. This game is dubbed as an action RPG. However, I think the RPG elements of this game are very thin. The skill progression tree is very shallow and ends up being linear. There are no real character strategy builds. You end up just building the same set of skills towards the end, as you can eventually just unlock everything. There's also a lack of weapons for an RPG. You end up just getting better weapon rarities of the same weapon, but with improved stats. You won't be picking up tons of loot containing unique weapons. In fact, it seems like you can buy every weapon from a vendor. There's a lack of weapons in this game, and for an RPG, it's a little disappointing. Each weapon wields several elemental ammo types, which is a design choice they went for over having a huge cluttered list of weapons that can only shoot one type of ammo. This was a good design choice. It's just a shame that there wasn't a bigger range of weapons with unique ways of obtaining these weapons, rather than being able to easily buy everything from vendors. Vendors usually will want certain rare machine parts in exchange for weapons. That's great and all, but you can buy these machine parts with shards from other vendors. By the way, not microtransactions. Thankfully, there is none of that bullshit in Horizon Zero Dawn. Shards are the in-game currency in Horizon Zero Dawn. But this ultimately means that you can buy every weapon from vendors. It's just a bit uncreative in that respect. An RPG element that this game actually does really well is the resource and crafting system. You can craft things like modifications for weapons and armor, ammo for your bows, and consumables such as health potions. Ammo must be crafted for your bows and other weapons, but can be crafted while in combat. It's very user friendly and easy to do. Crafting in general is very user friendly, which can't always be said for RPGs. Of course, crafting things takes up resources. Fire arrows can be crafted, for example, which require fire materials. These materials can be looted from killed machines. You can also get them from treasure boxes and merchants. Set types of machines usually drop set types of crafting materials. There are many different types of machines scattered around the world of Horizon. Most mimic some sort of animal or dinosaur. The twist is that the machine behaves like that animal it is mimicking and has the same stature, but because it's a machine, it also has things that an animal wouldn't possess, such as guns, explosive barrels attached to it. Each type of machine has strengths and weaknesses which can be analysed with your focus device. They will have certain weak points that can be attacked, and depending on the machine, those weak points will be vulnerable to different types of ammo and elements. Some are weak to fire, others are weak to armor piercing arrows, frost or shock arrows. Each element acts slightly different. My favourite way to take down an enemy in the later stage of the game was to shoot frost arrows at them. Once the frost meter builds up, they would freeze, which adds a huge damage multiplier. Burning damage was also a great way to evasively attack. The variety of enemies is excellent, and every type of enemy has a learning curve to them. There's a huge variety of bosses which also has a learning curve to it. This makes each battle tactical as you wait for your time to roll and you learn how it's going to attack you. You'll be looking at where to attack it, how to attack it, and how to defend against it. Overall, thanks to the fantastic enemy design and variety, this makes the combat excellent too. The combat is very responsive, fast paced, action packed, and most importantly, it's fun and satisfying. There is a lack of weapons for an RPG, but thanks to the huge variety of enemies, it doesn't make the combat stale. Another thing to add is that there's an element of parkour which works fairly well on the most part. Sometimes the controls can be a little bit awkward, and sometimes it can be hard to distinguish what you can and can't jump on. Most of the time though, it works well, and there's often rocks with yellow rope on it so it's clear what to climb on. There's different dialogue options that you can choose from, like in most RPGs. At times you can choose to give a different type of response, a fiery response, a logical response, or a compassionate response. I don't think it really has any impact on the story from as far as I know, but it does influence the conversation and it's a nice touch. The game took around 40 hours to beat, and I think you could get around 60 to 80 hours out of this game. Most of the side activities aren't fun, but thanks to the great gameplay, it can still be quite enjoyable in small doses. I absolutely loved the trials after I finished the game. The game ended a little bit prematurely in my opinion, and there were quite a few anticlimactic moments throughout the game. Regardless though, the story was great, and the foundation this game has laid down sets itself up for a very bright future. This franchise has incredible potential. What a great first entry. Horizon Zero Dawn offers a very solid and intriguing story that has tons of potential for future games. The game has responsive, exciting tactical and fast-paced combat. It has very creative and varied enemies, gorgeous visuals and a really likeable protagonist. The game's content isn't consistently strong, but the gameplay always drives the game forward when the forgettable side quests and flat moments in the story aren't hitting perfect notes. The universe this game creates from its unique and clever concept is what ties everything together in a fascinating way. Horizon Zero Dawn just slightly misses the mark from being a legendary game in my opinion, but it's still a fantastic game, and I can't wait to see what's next for this exhilarating franchise.